Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. So today is 4th of Feb 2022. We are covering the Hindu newspapers Delhi edition. Now, as part of our initiative, I always share questions for mains answer writing practice to make our newspaper analysis more exam oriented. It helps you in inculcating thinking abilities, and your preparation is aligned with the papers that have already taken place. So that gives you a good insight. Now you can get up to 2 answers evaluated per week for free. So all you have to do is share your handwritten answers in a single PDF file and post it on my on the Telegram or the WhatsApp. So the link is in the description box below. And try to make this as PDF because it helps me in giving a detailed feedback. It is easier to type, annotate, whatever on a single file. Okay, now one more thing. As this is Friday, so this week is concluding. So see, our newspaper classes are from Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday, we don't have it. And our analysis is pretty extensive, right? And you can also see the past year papers. You can see how much of it is already covered. So the thing is that these per week that is given over here, that is relevant for this cycle of Monday to Friday. And you can submit your answers till Sunday. So you can submit it, I can give you a feedback, and then we move on to the next week. Now today we have 2 topics where I have a mains question. So one is with reference to domicile based reservation in the private sector. And the other question is with reference to India-Sri Lanka fisherman issue. Now coming to the first news. So Indian diplomats to boycott Beijing Olympic Games. So Beijing Winter Olympics is going to take place, and in this, one of the PLA soldiers who was associated with Galwan, right, the Galwan incident that had taken place. So this soldier was honored. So he'll be one of the torch bearers. So naturally, it seems that Beijing or China is mixing the games with politics. And Indian diplomats, Indian government has taken a strong note of that and decided that their diplomats, Indian diplomats, will not go to Beijing as a mark of protest. Now, one more thing, there was another page in the international section where it said that Imran Khan, Pakistan's president, and Russian president will be part of this. Part of the Beijing Games. They'll be visiting it. Okay, so this was it. Now coming back to this Beijing Games, there is a question that comes to mind. We already had a Tokyo Olympics, so how come we have this another Olympics, as we know that the Olympics takes place every 4 years. So the thing is that we have 2 Olympics. One is the Summer Olympics and the other one is the Winter Olympics. So this is the Winter Olympics, and the Winter Olympics also takes place with a gap of 4 years. So only thing is that, let's say the Tokyo Olympics, the Summer Olympics, which we also call it as the Olympics, the main Olympic event. So that takes place after a period of 4 years, and then comes the Winter Olympics, which takes place 2 years after that. So it is staggered in 2 years like that. So every 2 years there is an Olympic Games that is coming up. But the Summer Olympic is the main event. And it is being organized by the same agency, International Olympics Committee. Right? So this is it. Now coming to the domicile-based reservation in the private sector. So we have Haryana, and not just Haryana, there are many other states. But just briefly coming to the Haryana issue, as it is there in the news. So Haryana enacted a law known as Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act, which says that 75% of jobs will be reserved in private companies, will be reserved for the domicile of that place. So domicile means for the local people, right? So it is with reference to Haryana. So means only the people from Haryana can be given a job. 75% will be reserved. And 75% of jobs is not, this information that is given is not adequate. There is also an income ceiling. For example, people who are earning up to 30,000 rupees. So within that bracket, right, there are people in a company who will be earning 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees. Those are not included. So basically the worker force and lower management, their job has to be reserved 75%. So naturally, this can be said to be violative of we are causing a kind of a, when we do reservation, we are discriminating, especially on the grounds of place of birth. So it can be said to be violative of Article 15. Article 14 also you can say equality. Article 15 is fine. Article 15, Article 16, I'll explain 16. Article 19. Article 19 provides for freedom to move and settle in any part of the country. So when you are not providing this reservation, when you're providing this reservation only for the local people, somewhere you are creating a barrier for people from other places to move and settle to your place. So 19 is also seen over here. And furthermore, Article 19 also includes the freedom of companies to operate as they wish, right? So in that case also it can be seen to be violative. Naturally, it was there in the High Court, and it had the High Court has put a stay order on this. Now, with reference to this issue, there are two things. One is from the point of view if its impact. Should this policy be there or not? How does it affect the economy? How does it affect the local people from that perspective? Significance. The other thing is it constitutional? Can the state government pass a law and have reservation in the private sector? Because this question was actually asked to me. This was not a matter of today, but it was a long pending issue. So this was again a question that students often ask again and again. So we'll discuss these two things, and we'll discuss it with the idea of this question, which is, what are your views on the idea of domicile-based reservation in private jobs? Right? I think this idea is clear to you with reference to Haryana job quota for locals. Substantiate by stating interest of different stakeholders. Now I'll explain. This is a very important concept on answer writing, that when you are writing an answer, right? Now this question is about idea of domicile-based reservation in private jobs. So here naturally when you have to express your views, and what views basically? Is it right? Is it wrong? Should we have it? Right? So such questions are there. So in that context, first of all, you create a basis, right? You say, okay, fine, this is domicile-based reservation. You explain this, define this, explain some recent events. So Haryana has introduced. Likewise, there are other states also that are contemplating, or they have brought a bill, or it is in the legislature. So Haryana is there, Madhya Pradesh is there, we have Jharkhand, Maharashtra. Telangana has already passed a law. It has made a law. It is an act now. So different states are doing it. That means it is an issue. So once you have established this, then bring out the positives and the negatives of that issue. And at the end, that conclusion part, that is where when you express your views, that see on the above basis, this is the following conclusion, that this is bad, this is good, or this could be done in a following manner so that it provides inclusivity, or it is in line with the values of the constitution. So this is how you actually write your answer. And as far as I go, I really don't normally give that freedom as to you think as to how you want to approach, because unless you don't do it, that clarity will not be there. So here the question says, substantiate by stating the interest of different stakeholders. So here we have different stakeholders. So naturally we are looking at the locals, right? Local people. We have the concerns for migrant workers. Migrant workers will not be able to get. The locals stand to benefit because of this. Migrant has a disadvantage. What about the companies? Private sector on which reservation has been imposed. So the companies will naturally not be happy with this thing. It creates a barrier for the company. They say it is violative of Article 19 of theirs, right? So it is, they have a problem with this. They also say that it will, if we want to invest, we will not like to invest if there is a constraint like this on hiring. We would like to prefer to move to, let's say, in Uttar Pradesh. With Haryana, there is a place known as Noida in Uttar Pradesh. So why not go to a city that is very similar, but this restriction is not there? So from the point of view of economy also, you can say, is it good or bad? And then comes the view of government. The government has an obligation of securing the welfare of the local people. right? Time and again we see that the companies have been investing, they are bringing in a lot of capital, but that capital, jobs are also being created, GDP is being created, but the local people are not getting benefited. What is the point of the GDP if the locals, if the people are not, their welfare is not taken into account? So in that case, there is a legitimate concern, but at the same time, there are certain legal constraints. Article 15, Article 19, and also Article 16. Right, I have to explain Article 16 actually. Right, so this you have to explain and then say that, see, then you have to come to the conclusion. Okay, now coming to Article 16. It is basically when the government has passed this, Haryana government, they have said that they have quoted Article 16 and they have used the provision of Article 16, 3 and 4. Now here is the problem with reference to, can the state government pass a law for having reservation in the private sector? So first of all, Article 16 says equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. But what are we talking about? Private employment. In fact, there is no such provision, specific provision for private sector. So on this ground again, there is a weakness. The state shall not discriminate on the grounds of place of birth. Even if we say that, okay, fine, they can have reservation for private sector, but you are having discriminating on the grounds of place of birth and residence. Now we can have reservation as a basis for reservation, but that can be only done by the parliament. The state legislature cannot enact a law for that purpose. It is only the center that can do so. And when the state government can do it, state legislature can do it, then again it is for the backward class of citizens. Now how do you say that entire Haryana is backward? You can't say that, right? You can say that, see, this particular community is backward, or you can talk from the economic perspective, but you cannot say the entire state or entire locality is backward. That is a problem. So this, the court will not buy this situation over here. This is a problem with this law that has been introduced. So even if it is passed, like in the case of Telangana, it can easily be struck down by the Supreme Court or the High Court. Now coming to Tamil Nadu governor. Okay, this right, 16 is there, 15 I told you, and 19 are also grounds on which it is challenged. Okay, now coming to Tamil Nadu governor. So Tamil Nadu governor returns NEET bill to assembly. So basically the thing is that first of all, Supreme Court had given a directive to the center that why do we have this NEET exams, medical entrance exam for different universities? There are different exams. The student has to fill form for one place, then give exams at different localities. Why can't we have a single all India test? That is the NEET. So with reference to this, a law was created and NEET was made mandatory for everybody. Now, this has been opposed by the state of Tamil Nadu, by the elected representatives of Tamil Nadu. They are not happy with this. So they brought a counter bill. They brought a bill that says that the provisions of NEET that has been introduced by the center will not be applicable for the state of Tamil Nadu. So they brought a bill. We'll come to the opposition, the reasons for this, but they brought a bill to oppose this law, to oppose the application of the law. So they brought a bill. Now when the state legislature brings a bill, it will become an act only if the governor signs it. The governor has to sign it. Now in this case, the governor has returned the bill. So this is, the governor has used the veto power, and this veto is known as suspensive veto. So has returned for reconsideration. They can again send it back. They can again pass it and send it back. And this thing, the state has to pass it. The governor has to pass it. Right. Now you need to know the veto provisions. So I have the veto provision of the governor as well as the president. So comparison, you can take a screenshot also and refer it. Now what are the objections of the state of Tamil Nadu? Objections. See, the first of all, the issue over here is, the objection they have is that, see, the center is intruding into the domain of the state. The state decides by means of a law as to how the universities conduct themselves, what is the grounds of admission, what is the criteria. That is the domain of the state. So that comes from the 7th schedule of the constitution. In fact, the state of Tamil Nadu had also constituted a committee to look into the issue of NEET, known as Justice Ranjan Committee, which actually said the same thing. Then the NEET exam that takes place, it's an all India exam, so it takes place in English and Hindi. So it takes place in English and Hindi, even though you can write your answer in the vernacular, but then this is a disadvantage to the people who know Tamil, right? So Tamil based students are at disadvantage because they will have to write the exam in English and Hindi. There is an option, but the questions will still be in these two languages. So interpretation of question is again a very important thing. Then the issue with the NEET is that NEET is measuring the analytical skills, it is measuring the aptitude, and it is just restricted to that. There are so many other parameters. For example, we have to also see if we have to look into the issue of inclusivity. There are people from the marginalized community, they should also be advantaged. Now people who are from the urban background, who are affluent, who can afford the coaching, who can afford to take a break, they are at an advantage and they are able to crack it. So this again, the NEET said that many of the people who are clearing it are actually people who could afford a drop, because not everybody can afford a drop and prepare. So especially from the poorer people, section. So this is a problem. Anybody with coaching can have this advantage. So it is not holistic, it is not taking that into consideration. Then we want enrollment of rural population, and rural population is at a disadvantage when a test like this comes. So representation, enrollment of rural population, especially in Tamil Nadu, will come down because of this. And Tamil Nadu is a state that boasts about its social infra, healthcare infra, and more enrollment of rural population into this. And they also favor that the admission should be on the base of marks that one has accrued into the 12th standard. So on that basis, it should be there rather than this entrance exam. Okay, so this is the suspension power of the governor, right? These are the provisions that are there. You can refer it. And these are the suspension powers of the, veto powers of the president. Okay, so comparisons can be asked in the prelims. Celebrating 100 years of Bhimsen Joshi. So there was also a PIB where a prime minister has wrote a note on Bhimsen Joshi, his contributions to music. So I didn't get much here, so I have done some additional research. So Prime Minister Modi paid homage to Pandit Bhimsen Joshi. These 100 years anniversaries, these landmarks are very important on which UPSC can ask questions. So he was awarded the Bharat Ratna. It is the highest civilian award. Second highest civilian award is Padma Vibhushan, right? So that Padma series is the second highest award, civilian award. So this is the highest civilian award. Okay, so he is remembered for his famous ragas, including Shuddha Kalyan, then Miya Ki Todi, Puriya Dhanashri, Multani, etc. Now the question arises, what is raga? Raga is basically the traditional melody patterns. Just YouTube and type raga next to it, or raga Hindustani music. So the basic music that keeps coming, that is essentially raga. So he has composed many famous ragas, especially with the Hindustani music. There are two musics again, Hindustani and Carnatic music. So he belonged to the Hindustani music. He belonged from Uttar Pradesh, then he went to the Dharwad region in Karnataka. Okay, with Hindustani music, there is one more thing, that there is something known as gharanas. Gharana means schools. So it's like a system of a teacher who is specialized in a particular craft. Like when we talk about the Hindustani music, this is the entire North India. So within that, there are a lot of variations. There were people who composed a certain type of music in one place, let's say Agra Gharana, Lucknow Gharana. So their music was a bit different. So Gharana is kind of a arrangement where we are linking the people from that particular school, right? So, and it again reflects of people who was trained in that Gharana. So it is also about the Guru Shishya Parampara. So it is a system of social organization linking musicians or dancers by lineage or apprenticeship and by adherence to a particular musical style. Right, this is there in the news, so you should know about this. Who constituted this? The famous artist associated with this. Right, so this Gharana was founded by Ustad Abdul Karim Khan, and these are the famous people associated with this Gharana. Okay, I don't know if it is important, but yes, this is with reference to the Ladakh border crisis, and maybe a pre-based question can still be asked. So this is with reference to the Depsang Plains. So this is one of the issues, hotspot regions between India and China. Right, so since the Galwan issue that has taken place, so there is a place known as Depsang Plains. So this plains is essentially is a plain area, as you can see, and this is surrounded by mountains. So there are many other areas. Basically, this area is important, strategic, which I'll come to it. So there are many other areas where there is a friction between India and China. So recently, our army general, he had given a statement that, see, we have resolved 5 out of 6 friction points between India and China, and of this he gave no reference of the Depsang, and this is problematic. Right, he says that it is a political agenda, so the government wants to get this sorted very soon. But Depsang is not being included in discussions and debates, in discussions with the China, at least not in the media. They're saying that everything is fine. It's not a friction point. So, but we all know that there is a friction point over here. So this compromises India's position. Maybe this is because of the political conditions. So this compromises India's political stance. So for one, this plain area that is there, this is very close to, it provides access to Daulat Beg Oldi. This is the airstrip that is there, which is very close to the Askai Chin region. Then, as you can see, this plain region is there, which is surrounded by mountains. It can be used for mechanized infantry and for tanks and other things. So it can be used as a launch pad for invasion or to get back the Aksai Chin, which they say. So it is strategically very, very important. Now furthermore, since it is surrounded by mountains, and this is the long stretch of plains. So in a single go, if the China is able to get over this, so in a single go, they will get huge tracts of land, which is of great strategic importance. And if they get the Depsang plain, then our access to Daulat Beg Oldi Road, our access to Siachen from this area, right? So all of this will get compromised because of this. Now, because of this Depsang area, many of our patrolling positions have also been compromised. So essentially, they are basically talking from this perspective over here. So it says that we have to give this more priority, and we cannot say that this is a legacy issue, this is a long-standing issue, and we'll deal with it. So this was not even mentioned by the army chief. So this compromises our position and it justifies the China stand, right? So this is a problematic situation. This is normally being held by the Indian military. Okay, yeah, okay. Now comes the issue of crypto. So recently with the budget, we have this blockchain and the bitcoins and other things. So with reference to that, people have been investing in bitcoins. So the government has said that in the budget that anybody who earns profit out of these assets, when a person buys bitcoins and one sells, like we do with shares, so the profit that comes, so of that profit, whatever profit is there, 30% is taxable. Furthermore, there will be surcharge and other things. And this tax is more than what any other jurisdiction is imposing. Okay. Now, one thing it says is that even though you have taxed it, you are not including this, the tax will apply later. So that means the people who have been investing over the years, if they, let's say they sell it in March 31st also, they will not be taxed. So this could have been improved. Furthermore, what has come to light is that they have introduced the tax. Normally we would say that a certain thing is being taxed, that means it is regulated. But the government has not yet regulated it, right? So government has not yet regulated. Instead, they have only brought those people under the income tax bracket. So a consultation process is still underway. It is still underway as to what should be the legal position of such assets. So that means we are still in the period of regulatory uncertainty. Now, there was a bill to be introduced for regulation of cryptocurrencies. So there was a law to be introduced. So the government said earlier that in the monsoon session we'll bring it, then they said in the budget session, but now there is no reference in the agenda of the bills that are being introduced. So that means this further, there is going to be a lot of ambiguity over here with reference to what is the regulatory framework on cryptocurrency. Now this is problematic because many people are investing in it. Furthermore, there are startups who have started with reference to the crypto, this thing. Then people who are trying to innovate. But in the issue of lack of regulatory framework, this is problematic. Right, this is problematic. Now one more thing, just because of this I was explaining, it came to my mind, is something known as sandbox regulation. You know, in areas, especially in the fintech sector, where a lot of innovation is taking place, if we create regulation right away, then it removes the scope of innovation. Because regulation says that you have to act in a particular way, you have to do this, that. But for innovation, you have to give that headroom, that flexibility. So for that, a sandbox kind of approach has been introduced. So for this, we can integrate this with the sandbox approach, where the regulator can work closely with the private sector or with the innovator and eventually come with the regulation, the best mix of freedom and regulatory environment. India's air traffic controllers overworked, understaffed. In fact, recently an incident has also taken place where there was almost an air-to-air collision of the Indigo Airlines. Okay, so yeah, basically there is this parliamentary panel which was looking into the issue, and they have raised the concern over lack of ATC people. Now naturally, if you are working round the clock without breaks, you're going to make errors, and it can be very, very dangerous. So for that purpose, they are advocating that especially the Airport Authority of India, to have more vacancies and fill these posts urgently on an urgent basis. And what is being seen is that with tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? Delhi, Bombay is again better off, but tier 2 and tier 3 are the ones that are neglected, and these have to be given more priority. They need to be hired immediately. So that is what a parliamentary panel has recommended. Now, with reference to air safety, these points are important. Then we have Udan scheme. Udan scheme is a scheme of under the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and its name is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. That is, a common citizen can also fly. Prime Minister said that even a person who is wearing a Hawaii chappal can fly. So that is the basic thing, that is to have affordable travel, accessible travel, and travel by air to even the cities which have not been connected. So tier 2 and tier 3 cities should also have air connectivity. So that is the idea of Udan. Okay. Now, there is the TMC MP, TMC means Mamata Banerjee party. So, they have said that there is a map of World Health Organization which has shown India without Jammu and Kashmir. And furthermore, it has shown Arunachal Pradesh as a separate entity. So, it is not also marked separately, right? So, this news is covered. Now, two things come to mind is from mains perspective, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the WHO. It has been under scrutiny because of the poor management of pandemic, and playing, it has been quite favorable to China in this regard. Late declaration of pandemic and other things. Its advisories have also been overlooked because of being not very effective in dealing with this issue. Okay. Now, from prelims perspective, we need to know certain details of this. So, WHO is a specialized agency or special agency of the United Nations. So, this is a class of bodies under the United Nations. This is very important. So, there is a class of institutions who are otherwise functioning independently, but they are under the ambit of United Nations. So, this is a specialized agency. And it is headquartered in Geneva. It's not mentioned, but I remember it is in Geneva, right? So such facts you need to know. Then you need to know some important reports, some important facts about the WHO. So in reference to this, we have about what we do from the website. So it says that we direct and coordinate the world's response to health emergencies. We promote healthier lives from pregnancy through older age. And there is this ART triple billion targets. So its achievement is basically to ensure good health for all using science-based policies and programs. Such things are also asked in the prelims. Now comes Chandrayaan 3. We have 3 Chandrayaans. So Chandrayaan is basically the space probe for moon. Chandra means moon, right? So that is it. So we have one Chandrayaan 1, which was towards the moon. It rotates around the moon, and it sees what is happening over there. So it is a space probe. Then there was Chandrayaan 2, if you remember. So Chandrayaan 2 the purpose was to send a space probe on the moon. This is Mars, by the way. So to send a space probe to moon and to land a space rover. To land a rover on the surface of moon on the South Pole, which will roam around and investigate the South Pole. Right? So that was the idea. So USA has been landing it, NASA has been landing it on Mars as well. China has also done it, so we are still behind, so we wanted to do it. So in this reference, there is actually more elaboration of this in this article about Chandrayaan 2. So we sent our rocket and then this rocket was to release, this is known as the launch vehicle, and this was to launch, this disintegrates, and this was to release a lander. So this lander is the thing that lands on the surface of the moon, and its job was to safely land the rover. This is a rover, so safely land, and then the rover would have traveled. So Chandrayaan 2 was successful, but the lander and rover mission had failed. So this lander is known as was known as Vikram, and the rover was Pragyan. That was the name. So this was more in the news. Now this Chandrayaan 3 will be launched with the help of a rocket or with the help of a launch vehicle known as Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle GSLV Mk3. Now this alone in itself is very, very important. GSLV Mk3. What is this? How is it different from the PSLV? So such types of question can be asked. In fact, UPSC had asked a very detailed question about our navigation program as to how does it function. Not just, normally it will ask what is this, what is the application. So in GS3 it asks, but it actually asked about the functioning, just that, nothing more, just this part, which made it complicated. Now with reference to GSLV Mk3, this launch vehicle is actually GSLV Mk3. So this is, earlier we were launching our rockets with the help of PSLV. So now we have a more powerful rocket known as GSLV. So we can launch heavier satellites. We can also use this for manned mission to space and lander and rover missions. So that is the benefit of GSLV Mk3, and it works on the cryogenic engine. So we did not have the cryogenic technology. Cryogenic means having liquid fuel. right? So with reference to liquid fuel, it is there. Okay, Islamic chief blows himself up amid US raid. So this was significant in itself. So I'm not really no analysis here. Yeah. So under President Biden's direction, they identified the IS chief, Islamic State chief, and there was a raid. He committed a suicide. Right. So this is it. So Islamic State overall has been in a very bad situation. It was ruling over Iraq at one point of time. Iraq, Syria and Levant region. But because of the sustained military pressure, they have been weakened, right? So they killed Baghdadi also. Now they have been able to, now in the recent times, there was some news about the increase in the presence of the Islamic State in this region, as well as with reference to Afghanistan also. So in that light, this event is important. So this is a big blow to the Islamic State. Now, Russia deploys more troops in Belarus. So NATO has said, and I'll just explain the analysis only. NATO, which is the front created by the US and which includes the European-led countries, it is a front against the Russia. Right? So any invasion or any attack by Russia on any of these countries, even in the small country, it will be seen as an attack on the entire NATO, and they collectively will respond on Russia. So this is a powerful entity. So NATO has said that, see, they have spotted a military buildup along the Ukrainian border in Belarus. So Belarus, they have seen this, and this is the highest ever in the last 30 years. Now this comes at a light when we feel that Russia may be considering a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I have a detailed video on this thing, Ukraine, a short video. So we see a military buildup on this side, right? We feel that the West feels that there will be an invasion into Ukraine. So they earlier also they acquired the peninsula of Crimea. So they will invade over here. There is a possibility. There is a buildup of about 1 lakh troops. There is a buildup of tanks and other things. Now with reference to Belarus, sometime back, and I mean 2-3 months back, there was a migrant crisis between Poland, and when I say Poland being a EU country, so between the whole of EU and Belarus. So there was being said that with the blessings of Russia, the Belarus has been providing a supply of migrants. So because of the Afghan crisis, because of the Syria crisis, there are migrants who want to get into Europe. Europe being a better country, better developed, so they want to go. And once they enter into Europe, because it is a European Union, the rights of the refugees are well preserved, and this is a developed country. They can go the developed countries, and there is complete freedom as to wherever they want to go and settle. So there is a buildup of migrants. So there was a criticism over here. Russia even sent the troops. Now in this light, because of the military buildup, and we feel that an invasion may take place, there is also a concern that Russia and Belarus, which are very close friends, Belarus may be used. There is a joint military exercise going on, plus this migrant crisis. So Belarus would be used to enter into Ukraine. Right? So this would lead to a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Jaffna fishermen hold protest opposing Indian trawlings. Right? So an incident took place where there was a clash between an Indian fisherman and this is Tamil Nadu. So Indian fishermen and fishermen from Jaffna. And in that process, some fishermen from Jaffna, that is Tamil Sri Lankans, so 2 people were killed. So there is a protest in Sri Lanka right now. Okay, I just will directly go to the question. So the fisherman issue has been a sore point in India-Sri Lanka relations. Briefly elaborate the issue and suggest a suitable policy framework to resolve the issue. So here we have to describe this issue, that between this, the fisherman issue has been a hot issue. What is the reason behind this? And then give as to what measures need to be taken. Okay, now let's come to this issue over here with reference to the India-Sri Lanka fisherman issue. So first of all, you can start your answer by stating some incident like this. You can also state about the fishermen that are arrested or our boats are seized by the Sri Lankans, right? So time and again this is there in the news, so you can write the more updated figure whenever you're writing the exam. Now here basically we have this issues. We have three issues. So first of all, we see that this is the international maritime line, and these are very, very close to each other's exclusive economic zones. So the fishermen from Tamil Nadu, this boundary line is not, international maritime boundary line is also not very visible. They tend to go towards the Sri Lankan side for fishing activities. One of the reason is that because of the bottom trawling activity that used to take place on the Indian side, because of this, or because of the unsustainable fishing, there are lack of fishing reserves, and therefore they move towards the Sri Lankan side where the fishing resources are better. Now coming to the issue of trawling. Trawling is a practice where you have nets, where the boats carry the nets. You can see the image over here. They carry the nets with them and they capture a huge amount of fish. Now they also indulge in bottom trawling, that is, this net goes till the bottom. So when you do this and you do it in an unsustainable manner, naturally in that case it will deplete the fishing reserves, right? So this happens. So they go into this. Further they say that, see this Kachativu island that is there, they say that this entire region is the traditional area of the Tamil Nadu fishermen, or the fishing areas of the Tamils. So this is a traditional area, and therefore they keep going towards this side. Now earlier this didn't make much difference, because the people over here were affected by the Sri Lanka civil war. But now when the normalization is taking place, people from here are also entering into the fishing, and therefore there are more clashes over here, right? Now what further complicates is that there is the island of Kachativu, which was claimed by India, but according to a 1974 agreement, when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, so she ceded the territory of Kachativu to Sri Lanka. Now what this does is that if this area was part of our territory, so the area around this would also be in part of the fishermen of India. They would have been able to get better access to these resources. So this undermines India's interest in that regard, right? So there is the Kachativu issue, which they still believe, but India has ceded this to Sri Lanka. So we have the issue of fishermen, there is a clash. We have the issue of Kachativu, right? So this issue is there. Then richer fishing reserves on the fishing resources in the Sri Lankan part. And see this maritime boundary that is there, this is an imaginary line. Nobody can see it when they are on the sea. So there can also be a case of accidental entry into each other territories, right? So this also takes place, and sometimes the Coast Guard of particularly of the Sri Lankan side is more active, and they keep arresting people, and this also leads to more clashes over there, right? So these are the points. Now here, when we look at this issue, we have to look at it, when you list down the issues, we have to, when you come to the solution, you can write a line that this is an issue where we need to look from the point of view of humanitarian point of view. It is the issue of livelihood of the people, and this is a legitimate concern. And when we talk livelihood, it is also the issue of competing livelihoods. That is the livelihood of the Indians as well as the Indian Tamils as well as the Sri Lankan Tamils. So what can be done to resolve this issue? Because both have concerns over here. So what can be done? So first of all, we need to look at from the humanitarian perspective, and we need to ensure that fishermen who are in jail, whose property has been seized, they are brought back and they are rehabilitated on priority. And to do this, we need to have some sort of cooperation. We need to have some sort of an agreement. So some platform should be there. So for this, we can have a joint working group where the Indian side and the Sri Lankan side can work together and resolve the issue of the fishermen. So that can be done. Then with reference to rich fishing resources, naturally they are going for the livelihood. We need to find alternatives now, because this is towards the Sri Lankan side. But we can look at the high seas area, or we can look at the deep sea fishing. So we can look at alternatives over here. So for this purpose, the government introduced a scheme known as the POC Pay scheme. Again, when I say POC Pay, you should know that this is the POC Bay region, this is the POC Strait, and the area below this is the Gulf of Mannar. So these things you should know. So we have a POC Bay scheme, which is essentially, when you describe this, it is diversification of trawl fishing boats from POC Bay to deep sea. Clear? So to move them towards the deep sea fishing. So this has to be there. Furthermore, we have another scheme for fishing activities, that is Pradhan Mantri Sampada Yojana. Right? Pradhan Mantri Sampada Yojana, it is to dealing with the, actually there is a problem here. It should be Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Right? Matsya means fish, Sampada Yojana. I think this PIB, there was a mistake. Matsya Sampada Yojana. So this is a different scheme from this. It is not the same scheme. So this is coming under the Blue Revolution again, Neel Kranti. So such measures have to be incorporated. So how many issues have we dealt with? The issue of rich fishers, we have done it, right? So this is done. Then coming back to this issue of international maritime boundary line, when we have a fisherman who keep going towards that side, we can do two things. One, we can have more strong patrolling. So more patrolling can be done from the Indian Coast Guard, that can be done. Marine policing can be more active. And other thing can done is we can have geo-tagging of the ports, or providing them with GPS mapping and other things, so that they know very clearly that these are the areas we should not go. We should not cross the international maritime boundary line. Right? So these are certain policy framework that can be done. Then there was an interesting point, not the view of government of India actually, they say that Kachativu can be taken on lease from Sri Lanka, but I don't agree, because Sri Lankan side will not agree to this. The Sri Lankan Tamil fishers is ceded, so it is ceded, right? So we have all the issues over here. You can describe the issue, you can state a fact over here, you state the issue, and then come to the suitable policy framework. Right then, so this is all from my side. This concludes this week's of daily news analysis. See you on Monday. Bye bye, take care, and all the best.